On The Late Show, David Letterman always had the biggest Hollywood stars on his show. He would joke around with them, make fun of them a little, and get the audience laughing along with every punchline. But sometimes, behind that famous smile and that laugh we all knew so well, things weren't so great. In fact, they were pretty terrible. There were 9 celebrity guests that Dave really didn't like. In fact, he once called them evil, and that's a strong word coming from someone who interviewed thousands of people. These guests would talk over him like he wasn't even there, act like they owned the place and were running the show, and treated his show like it wasn't even his anymore, like they could just walk in and do whatever they wanted. So was it just that they didn't get along and had bad chemistry, or did they do something that really pushed Dave way too far and crossed serious boundaries? Stick around because what really happened during these interviews might shock you and change the way you think about some of your favorite celebrities forever. Number 1, Oprah Winfrey, the queen who made Dave feel like he didn't matter. Let's start with the biggest surprise of all, the one that nobody saw coming. The one guest that shocked everyone who thought they knew David Letterman really well and understood how he worked, Oprah Winfrey. Yes, that opera, the opera everyone loves. And here's the crazy part that most people never found out about and never heard on the news. When Oprah's team showed up for the late show, they came hours before the show started, way earlier than they needed to, and immediately started making rules and laying down the law. The crew members were told they shouldn't talk much to Oprah at all. They were told not to start conversations with her under any circumstances and to avoid looking directly at her unless she talked to them first. Just that rule alone, the eye contact thing, surprised everyone working there and made them uncomfortable. David Letterman only found out about this a few minutes before rehearsal started, and he was really upset about it. You could see it on his face. When the cameras were on and they were filming live, the interview looked nice and friendly on the surface, but it really wasn't going well at all, and Dave could tell right away. He tried making playful jokes and throwing out his usual humor. She would calmly change the subject and redirect everything back to what she wanted to talk about. At one point, Letterman joked around and said, "You're used to being the boss, aren't you?" It was meant to be funny and light. Oprah gave a quick smile, barely a smile really, and said back, "I'm used to being prepared." She leaned forward, staying completely calm and in control of every moment. In that one moment, you could see the power had shifted in the room. It wasn't friendly joking around anymore like it usually was on Dave's show. It was like a reminder of who thought they were in charge and who wasn't going to go along with the usual talk show game that Dave always played. After the cameras stopped rolling and they cut to commercial, things got even more tense backstage where the audience couldn't see. One producer who had worked there for a long time and seen hundreds of guests come through remembered that after they finished filming, Letterman said clearly and without any emotion, "That didn't feel like my show." Those words hit hard because Dave never said stuff like that. Years later, when enough time had passed, Letterman finally talked honestly about what went down that day. In a rare moment where he was really open and vulnerable, which he almost never was, he admitted, "There was this distance between us. I don't think she liked me." That comment is really important because Dave almost never talked about conflicts in an emotional way or made it personal. He would joke about things or brush them off. But this time he did make it personal. He felt it deeply. The real problem was about who was in control and who had the power in the room. Oprah pushed back against his jokes and wouldn't let him lead. She took away his position as the center of attention in the room, the position he always held on his own show. And for Dave, that was something he couldn't forgive or forget. They famously made up on television many years later, shaking hands and smiling for the cameras in what looked like a sweet reunion. Oprah said it gave them closure and that everything was fine now. Letterman nodded and went along with it, playing his part. But behind the scenes, where it really mattered, Oprah was never invited back in the same way again. No fun segments where they could mess around, no taking chances with unpredictable moments. Dave didn't argue with her publicly or make a scene. He just adjusted how things worked quietly and professionally and kept her out of his world from then on. The door was closed, even if it looked open on TV. Number 2. Crispin Glover, the guest who made Dave's stage feel dangerous. This is the guest David Letterman put as number 2 on his private list for a much simpler and scarier reason. He made the show stop feeling safe. He made Dave actually worry about getting hurt. And that guest was Crispin Glover, an actor who was known for playing weird characters. For Dave, the problem started just seconds after Crispin sat down in the guest chair. Glover showed up on The Late Show in 1987 wearing really tall platform shoes that made him taller and a strange wig that didn't look right. He moved in a stiff, weird way like a robot and talked in a strange rhythm that didn't sound natural at all. The audience started laughing because they thought he was just playing a character or doing some kind of bit. Letterman went along with it at first, asking normal, simple questions and trying to keep the conversation going and on track, but Glover wouldn't just sit still like guests are supposed to. He kept getting up from his chair, moving around the set, and stepping closer and closer to Dave in an uncomfortable way. Then he stood up again, but this time really fast like something snapped. Without any warning at all, Glover suddenly kicked his leg up high in the air in a karate-style kick, and it almost hit Letterman's head, missing by just a few inches. If it had connected, it could have really hurt him badly. Dave jerked back hard and yelled out, "What are you doing?" His voice was different, you could hear real fear in it. The whole studio went completely silent. Nobody was laughing anymore. The laughter stopped immediately like someone had flipped a switch. During the commercial break, security guards rushed onto the stage from the sides and took Glover away. They escorted him out firmly but carefully. According to someone who used to manage the stage and deal with guests, Glover had already worried people before they even went live and started filming. He was walking back and forth backstage in the halls, practicing fake kicks and strange movements, and not responding normally when staff tried to talk to him or give him instructions. "We thought he was just really into his character and method acting," the manager said later when telling the story. "We didn't know he would actually go that far and almost hurt someone." When the show came back on after the break, everything felt completely different. The energy had changed. Letterman stayed calm on the outside and kept his professional face on, but the rest of the filming felt stiff and robotic and uncomfortable. Backstage after the show was over and everyone went home, Letterman said firmly, "That's it, he's never coming back here again." And he meant it. He wasn't joking. Glover was banned forever from The Late Show. No second appearance ever. No chance to explain or apologize. The incident made late-night talk shows completely rethink how they checked out guests beforehand and screened them for problems, and how they set up the stage for safety. From that night on, unpredictable behavior stopped being seen as cool or funny or interesting when it started to become physically dangerous and put people at risk. Crispin Glover did something different from everyone else on this list. He made Letterman worry about his own personal safety on his own stage, the place where he was supposed to feel most comfortable and in control. And that crossed a line that was never going to be uncrossed. That was unforgivable in Dave's eyes. Number 3, Madonna, the star who came to take over Dave's show. When David Letterman thought back on guests who made him go from just annoyed to actually angry and furious, Madonna always ended up in the number 3 spot on his mental list. When Madonna came on The Late Show in 1994, she showed up already looking for a fight and ready to cause problems. She complained about her dressing room being too small or too cold. She complained about the lighting being wrong and making her look bad. She argued about the makeup and how it was being done. Rob Burnett, one of the producers who worked closely with Dave, said later that it felt like she was warming up for something bigger and practicing for some kind of performance. Nothing seemed like an accident or a genuine complaint. Every little problem turned into an argument or a dramatic moment. Once the cameras started rolling and they were broadcasting live to millions of people, the change was instant and obvious. Madonna started swearing over and over again curse words that couldn't be on TV. She ignored Dave's signals to move things along and wrap up the conversation. And she refused to get up from her chair when the segment was clearly supposed to be over and they needed to go to commercial. Letterman tried using humor to fix things and lighten the mood. He laughed in that way he does and warned her, "You're going to get us in serious trouble with the network." Madonna didn't even pause or think about it. She smiled this confident smile and answered back, "So what? Who cares?" That moment really bothered Dave deep down. The audience laughed because they didn't know what else to do, but you could feel the tension in the room like electricity. Dave leaned forward, then sat back in his chair. His timing got thrown off and he lost his rhythm. The show kept going because it had to, but he had lost control of his own show. What really sealed the deal and made Dave truly angry happened when the cameras weren't filming during breaks. During the commercial breaks, when the audience was just sitting there waiting, Madonna reportedly became relaxed and easy to work with and nice to everyone. But the second the cameras came back on and that red light turned on, she went right back to causing problems and being difficult. A staff member who had worked there a long time described it simply and clearly. She knew exactly when she was being watched. She knew exactly what she was doing. After they finished taping the whole episode, Letterman didn't hide how frustrated he was or try to be polite. Rob remembered him saying with real anger in his voice, "That was planned. She came here to take over the show and make it about her." For Dave, being unpredictable was just part of comedy. That was normal and expected and even fun. But he felt like Madonna used his show as a way to create drama on purpose for attention and left his crew dealing with the mess afterward when the network got angry. That crossed a line for him, a professional line and a personal line. They saw each other again years later at events and award shows, but things always stayed cold between them. There was no real warmth. She used his show for her own purposes and to get headlines, and that's why Dave never really got over it or forgave her completely. Number 4, Joaquin Phoenix, the actor who used Dave's kindness against him. Why did Joaquin Phoenix end up as number 4 on the list? The answer is simple but painful. He made David Letterman feel personally betrayed on his own show in front of millions of people. And it all began the second Phoenix sat down in the guest chair in 2009. He looked really rough and unhealthy. He had a long, messy beard that was unkempt, was wearing dark sunglasses inside the studio where you don't need sunglasses, and gave slow answers that barely made any sense or connected to the questions. Letterman did something unusual that he didn't normally do. He pulled back from his usual teasing style. He leaned in closer to Joaquin, spoke in a softer voice that was almost fatherly, and tried to help keep the conversation going somehow. People watching at home could feel it through their TV screens. Dave was showing real concern for this person. He wasn't joking around anymore. At one point during the interview, Letterman asked with genuine worry in his voice, "What's going on with you? Are you okay?" Phoenix just stared down at the floor and mumbled something nobody could really understand or make out. The whole studio went quiet and uncomfortable. Behind the scenes where the audience couldn't see, Dave actually believed Phoenix was really going through something difficult and serious, maybe drugs or a mental breakdown. One staff member remembered clearly, he thought this was real. He thought Joaquin was falling apart and he needed to take care of him and help him get through the interview safely. That belief is what made everything turn bad later and hurt Dave so much. A few months later, when the truth came out, it was revealed that the whole appearance was completely fake. It was all an act. It was part of a mockumentary movie called I'm Still Here that Joaquin was making with his brother-in-law. Phoenix wasn't actually falling apart or having a breakdown. He was just acting the whole time and playing a character. And Letterman had no idea it wasn't real, he wasn't told, he wasn't in on the joke. When Dave found out the truth about what happened, he wasn't angry in a loud way or yelling. His anger was sharp and personal and quiet, the kind that hurts more. Barbara Gaines, a producer who had worked on The Late Show for many years and knew Dave really well, explained it perfectly. He felt exposed, like someone had used his genuine concern as just a prop in their act, like his real emotions were just part of their movie. Phoenix eventually came back on the show months later to try and fix things and apologize. Sitting across from Dave in that same chair, he said directly and seriously, "I hope I didn't offend you. I'm sorry if I hurt you." Letterman replied calmly but with an edge, You did offend me." That exchange said it all. Everything that needed to be said was in those few words. Dave accepted the apology while they were on air because that's what you do on TV, but things never felt quite right again between them. The trust was gone. After that whole experience, Letterman became much more careful and dead with guests who seemed like they were fragile or going through a hard time or struggling. Because for Letterman, that night wasn't just about a bad interview that went wrong. It was about realizing that even someone's honesty and vulnerability could be completely fake and staged. Even the things that seem most real can be an act. And that lesson stuck with him for a long time after the cameras stopped rolling and the audience went home. Number 5, Paris Hilton, the guest Letterman shut out for good. At the very bottom of David Letterman's most hated list sits the one guest he felt wasted his time more than anybody else in his entire career, Paris Hilton. It all started with her demands before she even showed up. Before Paris appeared on The Late Show in 2007 to promote her new business, her team sent over a whole list of topics they absolutely could not talk about under any circumstances. According to people who worked in the production office and saw the list themselves, the message was super clear and not up for discussion. Promote her new perfume that she was launching, don't mention anything about jail time or her recent legal troubles, and keep everything light and fun and positive. Letterman looked at the list carefully, nodded like he understood and agreed, and moved on with preparing for the show. He did what he always did with lists like that. He waited for the cameras to start rolling and for the show to go live. Then he completely ignored those rules like they didn't exist. When they were on air and broadcasting live, Letterman brought up Paris's recent time in jail with a dry joke right at the start. Paris smiled, but you could tell she was uncomfortable and caught off guard. The next question came about her experience and she completely froze up. She gave short answers that were only a few words long, took long awkward pauses where nobody said anything, and kept looking away from Dave like she wanted to be anywhere else. Letterman tried to make things easier and less tense and said in a softer voice, "You've been through a lot lately, that must have been hard." Paris just shrugged her shoulders and replied flatly, "I don't really want to talk about that." Dave paused for a moment, looking at her, then calmly and evenly pushed one more time to see if she would open up. But she completely shut down and gave him nothing to work with. Backstage after the show was over, Letterman felt like she had tricked him and wasted everyone's time. He thought she just wanted the publicity and the platform to promote her perfume without actually having a real conversation or being honest about her life. He said later that bothered him more than any rude guest or difficult guest ever had in his entire career. After they finished taping, Letterman was really blunt with his staff and didn't hold back. "If you don't want to talk about your life, don't come on my show. It's that simple." That comment mattered because it summed up his whole philosophy about talk shows and what they should be. Letterman believed a talk show was like a trade or deal. You get to promote yourself and your products and be on TV, but you have to actually open up and be real and vulnerable in return. Paris wanted the platform and the attention and the publicity without being vulnerable or honest about anything real. That's exactly why she never came back to the show. There was no big public fight or drama on social media, no follow-up interview years later to smooth things over and make peace like what happened with some other guests. Paris just moved on to other types of media where she had more control over the questions and the conversation. Letterman quietly closed the door on her and never invited her back. And for David Letterman, nothing felt more disrespectful than showing up, sitting in that chair across from him, and refusing to actually be there and have a real conversation. It was like she was present physically but not really there at all. David Letterman didn't build his legendary career spanning decades by pretending that everyone was easy to work with or that every interview went smoothly. Some guests crossed serious lines that shouldn't be crossed, and the damage stuck around long after everyone stopped clapping and the cameras turned off. Which of these famous guests from the golden age of late-night TV do you think crossed the line the worst and did the most damage? And who do you think Letterman never truly forgave, even years later? Drop your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. We want to hear what you think. Hit the like button if these behind-the-scenes stories surprised you or taught you something new, and subscribe to our channel for more Hollywood secrets and stories you were never supposed to hear about. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.